So you can call me Lucifer. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. Can you have some sympathy for the devil? What does that mean? Is there a devil? Is there this idea of this being that can torture, can tempt, can lure us into its evil devices? Can the devil be that snake in the Garden of Eden and lure Eve into coming into the idea of contrast, and then she taking that devil in her and tempting the Adam man who you knew was going to fall? There was no doubt about it. Adam never stood a chance. So wait a second, let's go back. So we've created this whole illusion around a story written thousands of years ago after being told for thousands of years. And what it is, it became a way of trying to express an experience. So let's break it down into today's terms where we've got an inner wisdom, an inner divine coming within us. You don't understand what the power is of the devil. The power of the devil is the same power of God. You see, we believe that there's a power that creates all things. Remember, we come from the aspect that there's an infinite power and presence. And this infinite power and presence can do and create anything, and it functions through the pattern of our thought. Now, this power does not judge. It does not care whether it is this or that. It doesn't care if you want to be Adolf Hitler and you're creating a war machine, or you're Gandhi and you're creating a peace machine. This power doesn't care because this power cannot judge. You see, this power is infinite. And being infinite, there's nothing outside of it. If there's nothing outside of it, it cannot judge because it's got nothing to judge against. It simply is creating because in its infiniteness, nothing bad can happen to it. You hear that? Nothing bad can happen to the infinite. So who are we? We are individualizations of that. We are that point of consciousness of the infinite right here now expressing. So it is only in the illusion that we're separate that we can have the pain, that we can have the fear, that we can have all of these bad experiences. It's in that illusion, and when we break that illusion and we connect back to our source, wow. All that pain disappears. It just falls away. It's so easy as it falls away. I've been talking a lot in the classes I'm teaching and that about unconditional love. Unconditional love is the love of the infinite. It is the love that does not judge. It is the love that accepts. It is the love that supports. It's the love that wants to grow itself into a higher experience. That's love. So someone brought this up to me the other day, and I thought it was brilliant. What's unconditional love? There's no such thing. There's absolutely no such thing. Either you are loving or you're doing something else, but it ain't love. It's control, it's manipulative, it's about getting your way, it's about doing everything that you can to try to be fulfilled from a material world that cannot be fulfilled. And so the unconditional or the conditional aspect is what? It is the consciousness that we would call the devil consciousness. It's that which is not connected. The unconditional love that is accepting, that is non-judgmental, that is supporting, and that is the divine presence. And you see, we can do both. Sometimes we do both at the same time. That's the fascinating thing about this. You see, we have complete freedom to choose how we think and how we act in any moment of the world. We have that because it is the gift of being an expression of the infinite. Because the infinite didn't come here and give you a plan. You, Susie, are doing this. You, Jimmy, are doing that. You, Bill, are doing that. There is no divine plan like that. So understanding the devil doesn't exist, why do these events that are so horrific happen? We want to get clear on that because understand that we have a consciousness. That individual consciousness creates our lives. But there's also a collective consciousness. That collective consciousness of the United States attracts to the United States. The collective consciousness of Iran attracts to Iran. The collective consciousness of Iceland attracts to Iceland. There's also a collective consciousness in Frisco, Texas, in Plano, Texas, in Dallas. There's a collective consciousness, and that consciousness creates. So if you go back to Nazi Germany at the time when Adolf Hitler was there, and you look at all the facts, you realize that Adolf Hitler didn't do anything. Adolf Hitler was an expression of the collective consciousness of that region and the collective consciousness of the world, because the world engaged into that. Do you see how that works? So there was no devil, and in this song, Sympathy for the Devil, it was about saying, don't blame this devil. Don't blame this illusion. The true blame is not even blame, but it was the consciousness of the world at the time of that horrific event. Whether it was at the time of Jesus, whether it was at the time of Stalin, of Saddam Hussein, of today. Whatever is happening today in the world is a result of the collective consciousness of the world. Can you get that? So anytime people want to say, I want to create a new consciousness, I'm going to support this political party. You got to ask, what is the collective consciousness of the party? Is that party's collective consciousness one of peace? Is it one of bringing joy to people? Is it one of seeing God in everyone? You see, that's the idea that we want to do. We want to come from the standpoint where the infinite wants everything to expand, not just some. But we must keep in mind that some will not expand because some have the ability to choose not to. Does that make sense? There are people in the world right now that have a consciousness of just surviving as they are, and they're free to have that. We can't judge that. But we think it's bad. We label it as bad. It is not. It's just the way it is. See, the infinite is expressing in infinite ways. So what did Jesus say? I don't know if Jesus said this, but he did say this in Jesus Christ Superstar. And I think Jesus Christ Superstar was clearer than any reading of the Bible that I've ever had, because no one ever interpreted Jesus Christ Superstar for me until I saw it. But in there he said, there will be poor always, perpetually struggling. Think about the good things you've got. Reflect on that. There will be people with mental attitudes that are not connected, that are always going to be struggling. That's where they are. And he's saying, don't worry about where their mind is. Where is your mind? Are you in gratitude? Are you in joy? Are you seeing the fullness of life? Are you seeing the fullness of the universe? You see, that is the Christ, the Buddha, the Krishna, the enlightened, the Babaji consciousness. I tried to bring in as many as I could there because there's not just one teacher. You are the Christ. You are the Buddha. Everything that was in Jesus is in you. Everything that was in Hitler is in you. Does that suck? Think about that. But every quality that exists in any human being exists in every human being. The key thing is our individualization comes from the fact of what qualities are we going to emphasize in our lives. And the qualities that we emphasize in our lives become the persona or the energy bubble that I like to call that we walk around in life with. See, I have an energy bubble. That energy bubble goes beyond me. Sometimes it can spread out where I can send that energy and feel people out in the back rows. Like right now I can feel Justin. Can you feel me, Justin? I feel good, don't I, Justin? Sarah, calm him down. But you see, there's an energy bubble, and we walk around that. Now, the only thing that can come into our energy bubble is a vibrational match. You see, that energy bubble is a frequency. And a frequency may be a range. It won't be an individual frequency, but it'll be a range of a frequency, because that's all we are is energy, right? Science has proven this over and over again, that we are energy, and the consciousness that we are takes that energy, builds it into form, builds it into an experience, it builds it into an idea, builds it into a way of being in the world, and then we walk through life in that energy body. And the only thing that comes to us in that energy body is something that must match. It must match either the high point of our frequency or the low point of our frequency. If it's too high, we can't see it, feel it, sense it, know it. If it's too low, we won't even know it's there. That's why a billionaire can be walking down the road and there could be someone lying homeless. They may never see that person. And it's not because they don't care. They just can't recognize beyond where their consciousness is. If you think about a billionaire and the idea of what they are in the world, they can't imagine not taking a risk. Because to become a billionaire, you have to trust in yourself and you're taking risks. The poor people in the world are not risk takers. What does it mean to be a risk taker? To be a risk taker means that you have found that thing that so brings you alive that you have taken and dedicated your life to that idea, and you're working every day to become a master at that idea. It is said that if you study 10,000 hours on a particular idea, you will be a master in the world of that topic. So 10,000 hours would be roughly, figure there's 365 days in a year. That's a lot of hours. But if you break it down and you start doing an hour a day, 5 years from now, you're what? You got a lot of hours in. 6, 10 years from now, you got a lot of hours in. At that point, you're a leader in the world. You, on that one idea, become the greatest teacher that people will know. Because only a certain number of people will get to know you, and they will resonate. They will feel that energy that you've become. You see, when you understand truly what lights you up, do you think I get lit up by talking? Oh, yeah. Do I study talking all the time? Oh, yeah. My other thing is teaching. Do I teach all the time? I'm teaching 4 classes right now, plus the coaching and that. I'm teaching all the time. This is all I want to do. Why? Because that's where my passion is. So everything I'm reading, everything I'm studying, everything I'm affirming is in that vein, because as I do that, I become different. Who's been here since the beginning? Charles is back in the video. Elaine's been here. Lee's been here. Am I a different speaker today than I was 5 years, 6 years ago? Am I a different speaker than I was a year ago? The same thing happens to you if you focus. What happens, though, is we get numbed into being the same. We get numbed into saying, oh, I'm in a relationship, and we feel good, and this relationship can't possibly get any better. We get numbed into that, and we stay there, and then after a while, when that numbness goes on, what does it become next? Boredom. What happens after boredom? We itch. What we're itching for. We're itching for something more. Because we have an eternal DNA within us that says there's more to be experienced. There's more joy, there's more love, there's more peace, there's more beauty, there's more all of it. There's always more. There's more abundance. The key thing is, when we're doing that more, are we in alignment with what our joy is? Are we in alignment and studying and living to that one thing? And then we put all of our action to it. See, this is where we make the mistake. We put our action into many things that are not our joy. And you know what? We're not very happy. And you know what? We're not authentic. If we're not authentic, how can we even be loved? Do you get that? Are you hearing what I'm saying when that simple sentence is, if you are not authentic, there is no way that anyone in the world can possibly love you. Because if you don't show someone who you are, they can't accept you for who you are, they can't be in non-judgment of you, they can't support you, and they can't help you grow. That A word is one of the biggest words in the world, and we're not taught that as children. We're taught that, children, it was great today. Mary Elsie was here with little Indy. Indy's like a little over a year, and Indy wanted that mint up there. She wanted that mint, and mom says, no, we're going to go over here, maybe later, maybe later. In a child's mind, the word later does not exist. The word tomorrow does not exist. The word next Saturday doesn't exist. The word after we do this does not exist. That child knows it is now, and now is all there is, and I will throw a temper tantrum until I get what I want. And we as parents say, no, you're not getting it. So we take what? The child out of the now. We condition that child not to be in the now. What happens in school? We're conditioned to not be in the now. What happens in work? We're conditioned to not be in the now. Why? Because the machine, the structure, the way we are organized as a human species must have you thinking toward the future. Think about that. How could they control you now if they didn't promise you something later? If you do this job now, we'll promote you 2 years from now. And you're there and you're in a job that you hate. Do you hear that? You're in a job that you hate, but you'll do it for 2 years to get promoted to a job that maybe you'll like a little bit more. Maybe you'll like them a little bit more. Why not just stop and figure out what you like? Where's your passion? Where's your joy? What is it you want to do? And then start studying that. Study it more and more and more and more. And then as you start to vibrate that, as you become an expert in that, as you become a greater expert at that, and you become a greater expert at that, what are you going to attract into your life? That which you're an expert at. Then the new job opens up and comes to you, and you don't even ask. It is right there because you become the vibrational match to it. You see, you do not need to believe in God to do this work. Because this law that we talked about works for those that believe and it works for those that don't. If you believe in God or you are an atheist, it does not matter. This law is always working. But the work is you have to work on what's going on in here. You have to work at what are you feeling that's attached to what's going on in here. You have to work at doing in alignment what's being said with what's being thought and do it with feeling. There's one more thing that I've said. So I've talked about the idea of finding out what you love and finding out what you and study that and become a master at it. There's one other thing that'll really light you up, and I think it's a missing ingredient for a lot of people. Is what you're going to do serving greater numbers of people to be better? Are you helping people to uncover a greater sense of joy, a greater sense of freedom, a greater sense of self-worth? We've got a couple decorators in the community right now. These women love to decorate. They decorate themselves, they decorate their children, they decorate their dogs, anything around them they decorate. They believe that they are bringing beauty into the world. And to people, having a home that looks a certain way, that brings joy. That is a service. So they are there building a business from scratch that they started maybe 2 years ago, maybe not even that long ago. But they're studying it, they're working at it, they're becoming it, and they're serving people. They did service to Agape. They decorated our suite. They brought joy into this whole community. All the people that are in classes, there's like 60 people right now in classes. All those people are getting to experience that environment. So they're bringing in a greater sense of joy. So what are they doing? They're focusing on what they love, they're studying and becoming more, and they're providing something of a greater service that others benefit from. That's a simple example. Everyone does not have to be a spiritual teacher on a platform, because sometimes we get confused and say that's what we got to do. We have other people in the room that work in the auto industry and provide people with automobiles. People love automobiles. Any guys in here don't love to go to the auto show? Any women that don't love to go to the auto show? Well, if you do, well, you're not one of those people. But there are people like me that never miss an auto show. I love seeing what science has created in a car. My favorite thing is to sit in the most expensive cars and see which is the most quiet. Do you know which car is the most quiet? For me, it is the Lexus LS 460, is it now? I think it's the LS 460. It's the big Lexus. You get in that car, you shut that door, and everyone out there is talking, the band is playing, and do you know what you hear? Nothing. I go, oh my God, if I had this car, I would put it in my garage, and I would just sit in it all day. I wouldn't need to go to Vipassana to do 10 days of silent meditation. I would go into my Lexus and just sit. So if any of you are out there and you are feeling a desire to birth a Lexus into my life, any of you in the audience worldwide that are watching this and want to build a Lexus into my life, I can be reached. I accept this type of thing. Do you notice I'm putting something into law right now, am I not? Did you feel my feeling about what that car felt like? You know that before my days are done, that car will be in my life, don't you? Oh, and let me tell you, the leather in that car is so soft. My wife is very soft. But the leather of that car, I would trade her for. Do you notice how I started with an idea, and I told you how the silence of being in that car made me feel good, and how I talked about it, and I started attaching feeling after feeling after feeling. Now the question you're going to ask is, Lee, how is that car going to be of greater service to others? You see, there's many ways. One is, I can let you sit in it with me. Number two is, if I sit there long enough and I evolve, I will share that with you. If it's truly true what I say, then maybe you all will want that car. And we'll park them next to each other in our parking lot. And we'll sit there in the Om position, and people walk by this line of cars where we're all just in peaceful meditation. Think about how Dallas-Fort Worth would change. Do you see, we would have shifted their mind out of what they're thinking into saying, what are those crazies doing? But those crazies will have a look of peace, a look of joy. You see, when we talk like this, is there any fear? Is there any worry about what's going on out there? No, because why? We're centered in the now. And you know the beauty of the now? The now stops us from even the consideration of a better or happier tomorrow. It stops us from the idea that we can create a happier past. You see, that is one of the things that happens with us is we're constantly trying to create a happier past. It is impossible. But we can create a happy now. Sympathy for the devil is simply reminding ourselves that it is our thoughts that are misplaced into something that is not in alignment with what we want. Does that make sense? It's our thoughts misplaced into the idea that there's something that we don't want, and we've got focus on it. Thriving into the consciousness of the divine is when we focus on what we want. We're doing all of our talk, our education, our thinking, our actions in alignment with that. And we can see how in that we become a person who brings a better good, a better service, a better joy into the world. I promise you that if you do that, it is joy. There is only one thing that is greater than joy, and that is love. But here's the key. You can't separate them. Love and joy cannot be separate. But when you have love and you have joy, you will have abundance, you will have health, You will have wealth. You will have relationships. You will have everything in your life you want. And if people sympathize with you then, that means they understand. And you've become a point of consciousness in the world that attracts love. How good is that? Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.